being recorded.
Yeah, so our next meeting, we are going to, in June, the hall is not available on a Saturday, not that we couldn't do some other night. But so we're going to try for a pop-up star party, probably maybe at the K-8 school at their soccer field. We have had two of these in the past, but it was probably about 12 years ago. And we only had about 8 people there at that time, but we had telescopes and a good night, and people bring blankets and just lay out and look at the sky. And so pop up, because we don't know when it's going to be a clear night. So like 2 or 3 days before, we'll send you an email, and it'll probably start, just a little before dark. They have a bathroom there now at the school, and that will be open. The lights in the parking lot there, we get the janitor to turn those off. We still get some light from Denver there, but in June, and I think John said probably about 2 weeks from now would be good for like a crescent moon, and then maybe
well, a little bit longer because the moon's full tonight.
Yeah. So but we have Jupiter and Venus we hope to see there, and maybe if it's clear, John, would you bring your 12.5-inch telescope?
I think so. I'm just hearing about it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So where is it?
The school, it's
Over there.
Ranch Chelsea Road. We'll make sure everybody has a map to it, but basically if you take off from where the Quick Mart is and liquor store area and go up that road, it kind of winds around, but we'll definitely send you a map, so yeah, it's been really fun. The two that we've had in the past, we've been meeting now for 12 years, I think, since 14. And I think you'd really enjoy it if you just get a clear night. And I brought our telescope. It's in the back there. It's a Meade 90 millimeter. And we haven't fixed the finder scope on it. It kind of broke. So it's night to shine with a full moon. John doesn't like the full moon for bringing his telescope to. I know. But this is, if we've got the moon out there and it's partly cloudy, and we'll take that out. And if you want to look at the moon, it hasn't changed much probably since the last time you saw it. But, people will be going there soon, either the Chinese or US or somebody else. Anyway, thank you all for coming. And
Parks and Rec. We thank
Oh,
Parks
yeah.
and Rec.
we want to thank the Parks, Coal Creek Canyon Parks and Rec. They're our sponsors. And I've been in on their Zoom meeting every month. And they are doing an August Mountain Fest at the school. And we'll send you more about that, or in the Mountain Messenger if you get that. It'll be in there. And thank you for the people who are kind of new that are here. We appreciate that. You're officially a Sky Watcher if you come to one meeting. No membership dues.
And if you are new here, the restrooms are in the back hall,
Yeah.
at the very back.
Yeah, and I want to thank the Mountain Messenger too, because she's always good about giving me an extra day to get them going.
Bart, do you want to introduce our speaker?
Where is he? There he is. So Leonard and I have known Michael Carroll, Mikey, to some of us, or all of us, I guess. Can you be Mikey to everybody? Okay. Yeah, we've known him for a few decades, and he's an amazing space artist and space science, mostly space science, but science book writer. And he's got 2 of his books here. He'll be talking to us about Titan. I think you all know that. On the Shores of Titan's Farthest Sea. It's a scientific novel. And this is his latest one. beyond Artemis, and if you know, Artemis
You're
is
just introducing.
the name of the missions that were going to the moon, the US was going to the moon. Human expeditions to the moons of the solar system. So, and you're selling these at your office price?
Yeah,
Do you take credit cards?
I'm not really set up for that, but I do Zoom, PayPal, chocolate is always. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, okay, or checks or cash, I guess.
Yeah, checks or cash. Yeah.
And so Mikey's from southern
Parker.
Denver, Parker. And we appreciate you coming up, and if you have. Oh, she did, okay. But yeah, so we knew him when he was in San Diego. At the Ruben Fleet Space Theater.
Right.
What did you do there?
I was the staff artist and press liaison, and I also vacuumed sometimes.
Yeah, I might have seen that. Yeah, when he said, here's my talk, said something about vacuum, and I said, can I check with your wife about that?
Please don't.
Yeah. Anyway, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're gonna take one quick second to make sure we got things set up. Share the screen, and John Williams, we will be checking with you momentarily to verify.
Standing by. Wait, just can't wait. I'm so impatient.
Or wait, have fear. Yeah.
If you've done anything, oh, there it is. Kind of.
Good.
All right.
Okay.
Your screen is not maximum.
Yeah, we're getting
No,
there.
it'll be soon. Momentarily.
I told you I'm impatient, right?
All right,
Okay.
looks good. You hear us, we hear you, you see picture. Good?
Good.
Good.
Yay.
Okay.
Take it away,
Excellent.
Mike.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome especially to the new Skywatchers tonight. That's great. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite places in the entire universe. Titan is essentially a planet in orbit around another planet. It's very big. My thanks, by the way, to all my friends here at Skywatchers who always treat me like royalty. I appreciate that. Before we get too far into the weeds at Titan, and yes, there are weeds there. I think last month Leslie showed this slide. This is a painting I did of Pluto's bladed terrain. But I wanted to bring this up because Pluto and the dwarf planets are ice worlds, very much like Titan. We don't find the kind of atmospheres out there that we find in Titan, but Pluto has a lot going on geologically. These strange cliffs, these ridges sticking up are called bladed terrain or snakeskin terrain. You can see why. They are about the size of the Flatirons in Boulder or Red Rocks, okay? They're about that scale, but they're made of pure methane. And on Pluto, they sublimate, they turn directly from a solid to a vapor. And as they're doing that, they build these weird things. But one thing that intrigues me is that at the day-night edge, the twilight zone called the terminator, you get fog on Pluto, and you can see the shadows coming through. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to be in this place and see it in the morning or the evening? So I did a version of that, and there we go. So there's the sunlight shining through these strange methane ridges. But now, on to Titan. Enough of these tangents. Throughout modern times, people have been depicting Titan ever since we didn't know really anything about it. And so they got a lot of things wrong. And it's fun to look back at some of the things, a couple of book covers here. The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut, a classic story. Anybody read The Sirens of Titan? Okay, fascinating work. Interesting cover. It's orange. That's the one thing we knew about Titan when we wrote it. It's orange, and we knew it was big too. Everything else was up for grabs. John Varley, I have no idea what's going on there, but that allegedly is Titan, and that's kind of fun. But probably the first really prescient thing to come along was by Arthur C. Clarke in his novel Imperial Earth, 1975. He talked about the methane monsoon of Titan. Well, it turns out that it does rain methane, and in fact, and there is a monsoon pattern in the weather, and so some of these lakes and seas made of methane on Titan may well be seasonal, but Arthur C. Clarke somehow knew that, and I wonder what was up with that. Chesley Bonestell comes along in the this was actually done in the 1940s, late 1940s. By that time, we knew that Titan had an atmosphere, but we didn't know how much. We could see that there was methane, but we assumed there was also nitrogen. And from an Earth-based telescope, you can't tell how much nitrogen there is there because there's too much nitrogen in our own sky. So the thinking was that maybe it was a thin methane atmosphere, kind of a blue sky like we thought Mars might have at the time, and the surface was red ice or red rock. This image is a quintessential piece of space art. It changed history. There was a generation of engineers who were inspired by the art of Chesley Bonestell. Just about everybody on the Voyager team knew who this guy was and loved his work. Bonestell did several versions of this painting. Here's one that was done in 1952, virtually identical. And we'll watch for influences of those, okay? 1970 comes along. We still didn't know much about Titan, but Ludwig Paschik was commissioned to do paintings of the solar system for National Geographic. Another landmark group of paintings, beautiful stuff. This is his view of Titan. He did another one for the interior, a little bit different. There it is. Again, you can see what the idea was. Looking at space art, you can instantly understand what the scientific thinking at the time was. So 1976 rolls in, and there are a few loose ends still about this strange orange planet-sized moon of Saturn. For example, what were the light levels like at the surface? What about the surface temperature and pressure? What about the consistency of the surface? Is it frozen? Is it liquid? Is it hard? Is it mushy? In terms of surface temperature and pressure, we were pretty sure that Titan was at the triple point of methane. The Earth is at the triple point of water. We can have vapor, we can have ice, we can have rain, okay? Methane could theoretically do the same things at Titan if the pressure was just right, the temperatures were right. So we assumed that there was some liquid methane there, but there just wasn't much to go on. And so it was tough for people at NASA, Ames, and Martin Marietta to put together a proposal, but they did. They tried to put together a proposal for a probe to land on Titan, or at least to survive through the atmosphere. My dad actually was part of this study long ago. And one thing that we didn't have at the time was CCD imagery. CCD was just barely coming. So they designed a probe that would deploy a flare as it went down on its parachute, and the flare would illuminate the ground below it. This was the idea. It was designed to land in a methane bath, in a snowbank, or a rock-hard surface. Very, very clever designs, done pretty much in the dark. Later on, all these things came true with the Huygens probe. But one thing that I get a kick out of in this image is notice Saturn in the sky. Space artists don't know what to do about Saturn in Titan sky. There's a great deal of debate within the scientific community about how well you would see Saturn from the surface. The majority views you can't. We'll just see a big blob of glowing light up there. It's a very, very dense atmosphere. But some say that with the right kind of polarized sunglasses, Ralph Lorenz, who is the head of Dragonfly, said if you wear the right kind of sunglasses, you'd probably be able to see Saturn from the surface. And as an artist, I gotta throw one up in the sky, right? I mean, it's just too beautiful to pass up. One thing that was sure, though, even back in the 80s, when we had our first close encounters of Titan and Saturn with the Voyagers, we knew at least that above that blanket of fog, tomato soup, there was blue sky. And so artists tend to call this the Bonastellosphere. You can see why, yes. Here is another study that was done in 1983, Science Applications in Texas, of a blimp. Titan is the best place to fly. The atmosphere is 1.5 times as thick as what you're breathing right now, but the gravity is 1/8 of what we experience. So you could jump really high. You could actually fly under your own power. And so aerobots and other things are being studied for long-term exploration. Cassini came along and opened the whole thing up for us. There's the beautiful Huygens European probe, European Space Agency engineering marvel that went down. And as we got information back, our art became much more realistic, more close to what the truth was. Don Davis did this painting based on the image from the surface of the immediate surroundings of the Huygens probe. I took 21 images. When this thing landed, it kept taking pictures, but it was a slit camera, and so it was the same view over and over and over. The view does change in subtle ways if you manipulate things digitally, but if you stack a bunch of images, it becomes a little clearer, and that's what I tried to do with this. It didn't have a big effect, but it kept me out of the local pub, so And of course, there were the beautiful images of Titan from outside by Cassini. This is, I think, Rhea or Dione in the foreground, and Titan beyond the rings. Very, very pretty. So, one of my favorite studies that was done was an aerobot study, a blimp-like thing that would sample the surface in many different places. Titan has winds. At the surface, they're pretty gentle, okay, but they're global. A tidal wave of air moves across the surface of Titan I think it's every 4 days. It's called superrotation of the atmosphere. And so you put something up there and it's going to have a free ride around the planet. This aerobot study, I had to pick a spot on the surface. And so this is a radar image from Cassini. And I put us at the shoreline of Kraken Mare. This is a big island, which we'll talk about later. And you can take radar data like this and plug it into a software program called Terrigen. And it's very good at doing 3-dimensional things. You can even tell it to fill certain places with liquid, which is what we've got here, right? So this is the initial Terrigen image that I commanded my little computer to do. And like a good Mac, it did just what I asked, more or less. But then I had to sell it. I had to change the details so that it really was consistent with what we knew. Again, the surface of Titan doesn't look like a sandy beach, right? It probably looks more like this image from Huygens. And so I added some texture down there, little rocks, sand from my next door neighbor's sandbox, because she had a 2-year-old at the time. And then I did this painting of, believe it or not, this will tie in. This is called Self-Portrait in Sand. You can see the little sand sculpture that the Allosaurus did of himself, but I kind of like the wave. And so I stole it from this painting. It was a traditional painting. And you can, in Photoshop, change the hue and saturation and chroma of color. And so I stuck it in there, and then I hand painted all the other waves there digitally and put Saturn up in the sky. And then I built a little blimp, did a painting on a piece of illustration board, and this is the system that they had come up with to sample the surface. It would drop this little, essentially a local core sample down, and then reel it back and then let it go to its next place. But it turns out that there's probably no lightning on Titan. And I didn't like Saturn up in the sky. I found it too distracting. So this is actually the final piece that I did for the JPL study. Just fun to take the scientific data and try to put it into an environment that makes sense. Other things are being studied. This is called Time, the Titan Mare Explorer. It was a very clever proposal for a boat to float through Legea Mare, which is the second largest sea on Titan. There's also been studies of submarines, which would be great to fool around and look for organic stuff going around the bottom of the lake. But of course, what has won out recently is Dragonfly. This will be a spectacular mission. Last I heard, the launch was 28. Is that right? I think that's what they're
What's the
shooting
vehicle?
for. Huh?
What's the launch vehicle?
I am not sure.
Blue Origin.
Is it Blue Glen? I hope not. It'll be later than 28. Yes. We'll probably talk about, we'll hear about Blue Origin in a while. Anyway, it's an octocopter about the size of a Mini Cooper, bristling with science instruments. And Ralph Lorenz, the head of the project, told me that if they can get mission extensions, if it survives down to the surface and then takes off again, they think it may go as far as 1,000 miles, which is a substantial amount on something like Titan. So that would be very, very cool. It's got a core sample, it has meteorology stuff. It's just an amazing, amazing mission. So it may seem somewhat like this, but here's your quiz. Everybody wake up. There's something wrong with this painting. See if you can tell what it is.
Saturn.
Hmm?
Probably Saturn.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, you just said you couldn't see it through the thick atmosphere.
Oh, that's true. Yes, but I'm assuming we can kind of see it because it's so bright.
Okay.
Saturn is lit from the left.
Yes.
The rock.
Right. The rock is inconsistent, totally. And I sent this to Astronomy magazine before I realized
Oh.
what I had done. So, mea culpa. Oh well. But this will just stay in this room. Okay.
Did they notice?
Nobody noticed. There were no letters, nothing. It was amazing.
Talk to David about that.
Yeah. This may have been before his time. It was a ways back. Anyway, now we're thinking even in terms of sending people. But that's nothing new. This painting was done in 1968 for a study, but notice the influence. Look at the sky. Look at the rocks on the surface. Okay, Bonistel lives, right? He's having an effect even in 68 and beyond, really. So here's another painting, Don Dixon, at about the same time, 78. So we were still thinking in terms of, okay, a thin atmosphere, blue sky, red rocks. It's a cold place, so there's snow and you can ski, obviously. Right.
About the observatory.
And before I show you Marilyn's masterpiece, keep in mind the spacesuits that we just saw. Okay. So this, to my mind, Marilyn Flynn is one of the masters of painting scenes of Titan. This is a cloudburst, a methane cloudburst in the canyons of Titan. And there are canyons like this on Titan. They have not been eroded by rain like we have. It's been methane erosion, okay? But still, there are places that look like floods, places that look like they've been glaciated. All this is driven by methane, not by water. The water is the bedrock there, okay? And in fact, this is, here's some reference that she used, a storm on Earth, which may well be similar to these big storms that build up in the south. And there's some of the foreground stuff that she used. Again, emphasizing that you can have alien materials that behave in the same way, that are eroded in the same way. So here, the rock is water and the rain is methane, but the same kinds of processes are going about against the geology. So very interesting. There have even been studies, this is a very recent one from MIT, about what those methane seas might look like. And remember that the gravity is an eighth what it is here. So the waves are going to be 8 times as tall. So this is a kind of an interesting study by MIT. Titan has had its effect on things besides literature and art. How many people saw this scene in Star Trek, the movie? Okay, it was not very realistic. But Carolyn Porco, who was the head of Cassini, was the advisor, and she said she was largely ignored. But it was a very pretty scene for all mankind. Much more recently, Titan figures in. I have not seen that this part of the show yet, but Wanderers is a short film. How many people here have seen Wanderers? It's amazing. It's about maybe 7 minutes long, narrated by Carl Sagan. Just a magnificent, a quick tour of what people would do playing in the solar system. And this is Titan, and people are flying with under their own power on wings. Every bit of Eric's short film is realistic. It's accurate scientifically with a little imagination thrown in. Walt Myers depicts a scene of a snowstorm on Titan. We don't know the details enough about the balances of gases and the temperatures and the pressures to know whether it snows. We know it rains, it might hail. All of these things are kind of in the noise, so we don't know for sure. But my bet is that you would have some pretty exotic storms there. This was a piece of corporate art, and there again is something wrong with Saturn. Aha! If you look up at the daytime sky and see the moon, you never see the dark part of it, right? You only see the illuminated part. The planet can never be darker than the sky. Okay, so all this stuff would disappear in the fog, but that's okay. It's an interesting picture with some domes, which are kind of the default that people use when you're having home somewhere else. Yeah,
should be a John.
they should. That's right. Yeah. But I've even cheated with that one, so I wasn't going to point it. There are some active studies going on now for Titan spacesuits. Because of the air pressure, you don't need a pressure suit, which is nice. You just need something that is really warm, and you need an oxygen mask. Also, there's some nasty things in the air that could burn your skin probably, but the bottom line is, it's a benign environment to design a spacesuit for. And so these are suits designed by Pascal Lee that are running at the pressure that's around them. So it simplifies things a great deal. This is a study being done at Johnson Space Center, an inflatable habitat. This is a 2/3 scale, but you can imagine putting something like this on Titan. The problem with people is that we're very hot compared to Titan itself. And so if you put your home against the surface, it's going to melt through. Just ask people in Alaska. The houses in Alaska have to be on stilts so they don't melt through the permafrost. Okay, same dynamic on Titan. So you would need to put something under it to insulate it, and then because it's such a distant place, you have to decorate. So on the shores of Titan Sea, I had to kind of go through some of these machinations. I had to, first of all, pick a place. Yes.
In watching this, you talked about the triple point of methane, which is minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit. This stuff appears to be in a lot warmer atmosphere than minus 300 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, you mean the spacesuits or the habitats?
Everything.
Everything, I know. The temperatures are nasty. But actually we have ways of, insulating living areas to about that. The big problem on Titan is that when you come traipsing into your environment, your home environment, there's going to be oxygen. And you're dragging methane and butane and ethane with you. Yeah. So that makes for a very fun novel. So I picked a place that I was familiar with here. By the way, Maida Insula is about the size of the big island of Hawaii. And so our novel takes place here at the shoreline. And then I had to come up with a map. What would Titan be like if it had been inhabited for 3 centuries? If we had different spots of civilization, little cities here and there, launch facilities, settlements, comm stations, and then all those things feed into the story itself. You have to have a kind of a cohesive little universe that you're making. So I'm going to bore you with just 2 paragraphs from this book, which describe what this environment might look like from the human standpoint. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. At the crest of the mount, a strangely Earth-like panorama opened ahead of them, a vast floodplain defined the serpentine wanderings of a river delta. Teardrop-shaped islands pointed upstream toward what must have been a dramatic methane flow in some past downpour. The rich chestnut sand looked like poorly ground turmeric. What a strange place this was, where the sand beneath her feet had fallen from the sky. That alien combination of powdery hydrocarbons and methane mist led to hidden traps, soupy sludge that could ensnare a rover or an unwary hiker. 2 researchers had been lost only the year before Abby had arrived. That was when somebody put up all those mind the goop signs. Kraken mirrors dark, slow motion ripples slice the tarry line across the base of the low hills on the distant shore. Sludge rimed the coastline, reflecting spectral colors in the dim light. Further to the north, the shore rose in ragged cliffs, icy promontories stained by sooty methane rains. Her Norwegian colleagues, who would be perfectly at home here, were liquid methane had engraved fjords into the coastal hills. The landscape sloped gently down in the direction of the shoreline, low hills rising up to block their view of Kraken. The yellowish mounds emerging from the dark organic soil reminded Abby of bumblebees. She gazed at the rugged island rising from the subdued methane swells. It was the color of custard, matching most of the shoreline. Rain and wind had scoured the top clean so that a blue-gray rampart of pure water ice crowned the island. It looked like it needed a Cape Cod lighthouse. So it's fun to look at the science and incorporate it into painting or music or writing as we see more and more these days. So someday I am confident that we will all be able to take a cruise ship out to Saturn, just like we do to Greece today. Greece, you pick which islands you want to be in, you spend a couple of days on each island and cruise on. And that's what we'll do at Saturn with Titan and Nemus and Dione and Iapetus, one of my favorites. So it'll look just like that. Now you don't have to wait. All right. So I did bring some books. I'm selling them at my cost if you're interested. If you're not, or you want to grab a Titan book later on your own, there are pieces of paper back there that'll give you a discount through the publisher Springer. And I think we have time for a few questions. Do we have time for discussion?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's discuss, shall we? Yes.
Yeah, so I just recently reread Imperial Earth.
Oh, you did?
You know, in light of what we know about Titan, you know, I have you ever thought about what he would have done differently to write about that? I think his civilization on Titan was underground. I think it's below the surface.
That's right.
And it probably would do that again, wouldn't he?
I imagine the thing that's nice about Titan is you don't have the radiation problems that you have at Mars or the moons of Jupiter, so you don't have to bury things. But thermally, it might be a good idea.
So why not?
Titan doesn't have a magnetosphere
Right.
to protect it, but Saturn is very benign.
Well,
Yeah. So there's not a lot of radiation coming from Saturn, and you're way away from the sun.
that's true in this far.
So yeah. Now on Mars, it's going to be nasty. You know, you have all these great movies about people running around on Mars, but the fact is that if there's a solar flare, you'll have about 8 minutes to get somewhere safe. Maybe less than that. I'm not
It's
sure.
longer.
Is it longer? Oh, it's 8
What
minutes
distance of
here.
Mars, yeah.
Yes, right. So maybe
20
12
minutes or something like
for
that.
20. Okay, yeah. At any rate, you'll need to run fast to safety. The easiest way to insulate against radiation is about 3 feet of dirt. And so all you have to do is bury your inhabited areas of the settlement under some dirt. It's not very appealing aesthetically, but it's good to be alive. So all right, what else?
Any questions on Zoom?
Hey, I got one for you, Mike. So you have illustrated a jillion things. Well, maybe not a jillion, but 500,000. And what is, and you're talking about Titan as, your current favorite spot, but is there a illustration that you just absolutely loved putting together, researching, doing all the things?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think as far as Titan goes, the blimp thing was fun because it was such a challenge. I had to get the engineering right and everything else. So that was a fun one. Mars is a great place to paint. I think Mars should be a different color, so I'm thinking we should paint it green, but that's different.
It's actually,
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah, terraform. So, yeah, I think my favorite two subjects are those, and lately Pluto. I went to a conference last summer and fell in love with that little bitty thing that I think is a planet. So there.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
What gas would you put in the blender?
Oh, what was it? I think they said hydrogen is lighter than what's in the, yeah, you can't just pick anything. On Venus, if you have an inhabited station in a giant balloon, you can fill the balloon with oxygen and helium, and it's lighter than the CO2 around it, which is very handy if you want to live in a balloon. But I think they were talking about hydrogen and something else. It was a mix, yeah. And they had done some studies, but yeah, the atmosphere of Titan is the most similar to the Earth of any other place because it has so much nitrogen. It has as much methane compared to the nitrogen, roughly, as we have oxygen compared to our nitrogen. So, interesting kind of alien mix out there. Mark.
So in a couple of talks ago, you speculated on the whales jumping out of the oceans of Enceladus through the tiger stripes.
Right.
Can you speculate upon what biota we would find?
Oh.
And we're assuming it's going to be in the lakes of Titan. Might there be something elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, so Titan is a biologist's dream. It rains organic compounds. It rains the stuff that Earth builds life out of. Okay, it is covered with complex organic material. But likewise, Enceladus has some stuff squirting out of it. And Cassini was able to fly directly through those plumes and sample them. And turns out that there's a lot of, some organic material down in those oceans. So in terms of life on Titan, the oceans of Enceladus are warmer than the surface of Titan, even though they're right next door to each other. Something is keeping the salt water warm and pliable. On Titan, you have what astrobiologists call the T problem. If you've ever had an afternoon in the winter when it's cold and you get a little cup of hot tea and you put a bit of sugar in and stir it up. That's it. It's just right. Summertime, you have a glass of iced tea. You dump some sugar in it, stir it up. Nothing happens. It all stays at the bottom, right? It has a very hard time dissolving. Biochemistry has a really difficult time, we think, at the temperatures of Titan. So if there's anything there, it will be like an animated popsicle, I think. That's science. Yes. Yeah.
What's the latest thinking about the origins of Titan?
Oh, yeah. So, there are several theories. One is that it was captured. And what's appealing about that is that it's so different from all the other moons of Saturn. The moons of Saturn are mid-sized moons, about the same size as the ones at Uranus. But so what's Titan doing there? It's huge, and it's definitely an outlier. It may have formed in the system as a lot of those other moons probably did, because they're all going the same direction, the correct prograde direction around the planet. So as a planet spins, whatever forms with it is going to orbit it in that same direction. A lot of those moons, including Titan, are doing that. So it makes sense that it was that it came to be in that formative cloud, but it may well have been captured as well. The problem with the capture theory, I think, is that it probably would have gotten rid of a lot of the other moons. We see that at Neptune. Triton is the size of our moon. It's the biggest moon of Neptune. It's going the wrong way. Clearly, it came from somewhere else. Neptune has no family of mid-sized moons. It has a couple semi-big ones, but most of them are small. Whatever it had got tossed out in that cataclysm that captured Triton. So the solar system is replete with tales of disasters and violence back then, and that's, I think, why I like to study it. All right, what else? Yeah.
Okay. I can see, it might be better to send humans to Titan. But you mentioned you like to see green Mars, and I am anti-terraforming. So convince me that that's a good idea.
I just meant the
Okay.
color of paint.
Oh, the guy.
Yes, I was saying I like to paint Mars and a whole different thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But terraforming is a great, I mean, we could spend a whole night on. If any of you aren't familiar with the concept, terraforming is engineering on a planetary scale. So in the case of Mars, it's making Mars into another Earth. You really can't do that with the inventory of resources there, but it's a great science fiction meme.
And one of Chris McKay's dreams.
And one of Chris McKay's dreams. And you could, let me correct, you could do it for a while. But it wouldn't be permanent. Mars doesn't have enough gravity to retain as much atmosphere as we do. It's a whole lot colder. It's hard to warm a place like that up. There are ways of doing it. And people like Chris McKay and other visionaries are studying those. If you want a great book on the subject, or a trilogy, Kim Stanley Robinson's Red Mars, Green Mars, and Blue Mars really gets into some of the science of terraforming. So, and he's tells a great story. So it's an easy way to learn science. All right, anything else before we go to Leonard, I believe? Anything else from Zoomers?
All right, so now will be intermission. So now we're going to do a computer swap here, so discuss. But Carolyn, you have some like Star Party thing coming up. Did you want to say something about it?
Yeah.
While we make a change?
Today, there will be a star party at Golden Gate Canyon State Park at the campground with the amphitheater, and I've forgotten the name of it now. I could have done something in I think we're starting about 8 o'clock. We'll talk about an hour, answer questions. If the others go, we'll go up to an hour point for some. We're going for about 45 minutes. If it's cloudy but not reading, I'll just stay and we'll do a Q&A. So if anybody wants to come to that, but watch our Facebook page and I'll put something about it.
Maybe John Williams could send something.
his homemade telescope, and he sat there for about a half an hour showing everybody the moon through his telescope. It was great, you know, I loved it.
What, as far as the parking over there, if you don't have that's.
If you have the state park pass, you just park.
And if not, what one of those little kiosks?
Yeah, I don't remember where it is, I think there's a payment box right by the ranger station. So I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the campground, it's the main campground. Off of 119 going up on 46, or on Gap Road.
Yeah, Reverend Bridge.
Pardon me, Reverend Bridge, thank you, yeah. And so there's a big amphitheater there, they've got a projector set up, and I just give talks, and the last time I did it, I talked for about a half an hour, and we spent an hour just answering questions, because it clouded up, and we couldn't go up to Panorama Point.
All right. John Williams, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thanks for checking.
All right. Well, if you guys can hear us and we can hear you, and we should probably have Leonard get up and say his stuff.
You want to share the screen?
Let me. Yes, I do want to share the screen.
And then we'll have
Thank you.
Mike's books for sale back on the tables after Leonard's talk.
And I have 3 posters also.
Yeah. Check this out first. Chuck with the wire.
Hey. There's your little hand clicker. All
Hey,
right,
we've
Len-
had an exciting week.
Yeah.
A week. Everything was going fine, and I'll talk about that. Pretty interesting dynamics of a bunch of different things happening. I write for space.com, so I'm always on the dole to write about success, tragedy, in between, whatever it is. So we had a real interesting, the last time I was here, we were very happy about Artemis 2. We had 4 people fly around the moon, come back to Earth. Everything is fine. We're cruising. Everything's good. The NASA administrator was beside himself on how successful the flight went, and we were all bolstered by 4 people that did some incredible things, and a lot of it's still coming out. I mean, the preliminary science return on that mission that just happened is forthcoming, and it's going to be very interesting what they really saw. And here's our 4-person crew. Great. Probably the best. Of all the astronauts, I tell you, these 4 are bonded. Not only with themselves, but the American public and worldwide. We got to know them very well. So it was a very exciting mission. It certainly accelerated NASA to start talking about where it wants to go. And so the big thing that happened last week was, I think it was last week, everything seems like an hour ago. We got into the moon base. NASA is very keen on establishing a lunar base, and a lot of detail. But one issue that's coming up is how competitive is the moon race. We've got NASA buying private services from SpaceX and the Amazon Blue Origin group. And both have a very interesting designs that they want to land humans on the moon and also bring other hardware. And you start looking, okay, what happened there?
You're still good,
Oh, okay.
but I had the volume
Oh,
set
okay.
on this earlier too
Oh,
low,
never mind.
and so
Okay,
I'm
go
bringing
ahead.
it up.
All right. Let me know what happened. Anyway, you know, it's very competitive. You know, we have our own competition going between two private companies now, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. So it's a very dynamic time for the agency to work with both groups, both private sector groups, getting lots of money to develop their landers. You know, I always say the last time I looked, you have to have a lander if you're going to put humans on the moon. We don't have a lander. You know, we don't have a design yet that I think people are comfortable with, and that's turning out to be a safety issue. Let me look here. Well, okay, that's not turning on.
Did that change?
Next one. Yeah, okay, so this is NASA, you know, looking at how they want to evolve a moon base. And, you know, they've got, you know, to get to the moon and reboot it, I always call it rebooting the moon. That's what we're doing. You know, the last time we were at the moon was 1972, you know, 50 odd years away in the past. And that was the Apollo 17 mission. So, you know, getting back to the moon is turning out to be a little bit troublesome. Why is that? I have no idea, but man, whatever it is, it's more complicated because we're adding on a lot of capability from private sector, what the government wants to do. And this was sort of the chart that NASA is showing now of how, you know, stand by, we got a moon-based evolution. We're going to do it. We're going to be there. We're going to be a part of the lunar scenery. And then, a couple days ago, one of the major contractors for the lunar activity for NASA blew up on the launch pad. This was the New Glenn booster, and it was a significant failure. It was testing its cluster of engines on the booster stage. There was nobody on this. This is a robotic, you know, uncrewed vehicle that was going to launch Amazon Leo missions, I believe. Anyway, they were testing it out the other day, and the whole thing blew up and took out a good chunk of the launch pad that Blue Origin has invested a lot of money in. So NASA is caught now, I think, in a kind of a quagmire of its own making in some ways. And we've got to figure out, you know, how do we repair this pad and all the other things that are going to have to happen if you're going to have a lunar cadence, you know, putting payloads on the moon and people eventually. Meanwhile, just the other day, I mean, this is how active it is. I'm telling you, I've been busy. China brought down their space station crew that's been up there the longest they've ever flown for China, about 7 months or so. And so that was a good thing. They actually came back, kind of an interesting side story. They came back in a capsule that had to be shot up to the space station because one of the capsules that brought another crew actually had a damaged window. And it was so bad that they couldn't actually put humans into it because it would have some problems coming back down. So they brought that capsule back down on autopilot. But they launched a rescue, kind of a rescue vehicle up to the space station. So they have a pretty active, if something happens, we're kind of there, and China has a pretty good kind of space rescue capability that they built into their space program. Anyway, this was the last crew on the left is the crew that just went up, and they rendezvoused and docked with the the crew that was already up there. That crew has come back down now to the Earth. And here's the landing and extracting the, what they call taikonauts. You know. We have astronauts, the French have spationauts, China has taikonauts. So anyway, it all worked out. They're back on Earth. They just landed a couple yesterday. And the one thing that I'm following is really the space race. I think it is. It's pretty dynamic with an explosion on the launch pad for Blue Origin. It's going to get pretty dicey here in the next couple of months. It's really an active story that you got to keep an eye on. China has moved forward with their own lunar lander program for humans. They have a pretty top-notch collection of hardware that they're developing and testing, and they're trying to shoot for the 2030s. And the artwork is pretty cool. It's just doing it is hard. That's the main thing. It ain't easy yet. And so they got flags and footprints of Chinese style on the moon in artwork. What's happening, we do too. We got artwork. There's our guys, Artemis. They're landing there with a U.S. flag. There's the China people with a Chinese flag. And you know, we're all going to the South Pole. Let's go. Okay, we're all going to be going down to a special area that's near Shackleton Crater. Things are moving forward. A lot of exploratory missions robotically have identified that site as a potential area for water ice that could be a substantial resource for crews on the moon. So, you know, everybody's shooting for the same thing. Okay, I'm flipping around now because I don't remember what I put up here. Watch this space, X. They have an initial, I have never really, I don't have enough money to be interested in the stock market. That's the first thing. I got a call from space.com and said, would you do the fact that SpaceX is about ready to go public, and what does that mean, and what influence can that have on all the space startups? And I had a bunch of questions. You know, when you're a freelance writer, you always go, oh, that sounds great. You hang up the phone and you go, I don't know anything about that. What am I supposed to do? So, you know, I went to this, you know, I've never gone to the security stock, whatever those people are. And sure enough, there's SpaceX with their public offering, and it lays out the entire company. For the first time, we're seeing what Elon Musk and SpaceX is about. People are excited, people are worried, people are interested. There's so much hucksterism going on, as far as I can tell, about making you want to go buy that stock. And maybe it's deserved, because there's a lot going on in that document. I've read the whole thing. And, you know, the Moneymaker Enterprise, here's Elon Musk on one side. He's going, we want to be a multi-planet species. You know, if you're a stockholder, what's he doing? How much is that going to cost? Turns out, when you look at the numbers, he's making all the money, not on rockets, but Starlink. Starlink is his big cash cow. And I went and interviewed a bunch of people, and they pretty much confirmed everything. Starlink's the big thing. AI, he's putting money into AI. That's going to be the next big thing. And when you talk to these people, they start adding up all the things that SpaceX is putting their money in. If they get this IPO, I mean, everybody knows we're going to have the first trillionaire on the planet would be Elon Musk. the value that people are putting onto SpaceX right now is 7 point something billion or trillion. You know, God knows where we're going on this, but that's going to be really interesting to watch because it'll have an influence on a lot of other things. And again, I'm speaking from no knowledge. I have no money. To talking to people that have money and experts on IPO, how they work. And it's pretty interesting. So keep an eye on that and let's see how it goes. It may not go as well. It's going to be out for public purchase stocks next month, it sounds like, maybe. So watch that space. One other thing that I keep badgering you guys about is I keep an eye on the UFO situation. Pentagon has done 2 releases of data about what they can't figure out. UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, some of it tied to unidentified flying objects, whatever the term you want to use. Trump has promised, like he's done on JFK files and Martin Luther King files and other files. Anyway, he has pressed the Pentagon to release data that has never been seen before. So we've had, in the last, since we've talked, a couple of releases of really interesting Pentagon data. You know, I've done a lot of interviews with all the UFO groups and they're still not happy. They want more. They want aliens on the table with pictures, you know, from the Pentagon or something, you know, whatever they want. But, you know, we're getting there, and we don't know. There's another batch coming shortly, and we may get more and more information about have we been visited? You know, what are these UAP things? And even Trump is starting to go talk about extraterrestrial. So we'll see where this is really headed. There's a big, a quagmire of congressional pressure to get more files out, do more. I'm fascinated by this. I think this is a bellwether kind of event, but who knows where it's going to take us. And even the big question is whether or not we're ready for quote unquote disclosure. Steven Spielberg is going to tell us in next month. Okay, last thing, and I'll shut up. I found this fine. You know, one of the things about exploring Mars is like you got to use Mars to explore, and sure enough, people have been talking about tumbleweeds on Mars. You know, and a group in Europe has actually gone to the Atacama Desert and tested a design for a tumbling rover that's blown around by the winds on Mars. And they made some really good progress on this design. So, you know, who knows what the future is for exploring Mars, but we're all going to be taking a tumble at some point. That's it.
Any questions for Leonard?
Oh, I hope not. It's been a real, I'm telling you, this last, you know, every week is another thing that's going on of, you know, trying to sort out how the dynamics of all this is going to play out. And that explosion pretty much, you know, is going to set the U.S. back. I'm not going to say China's going to be on the moon before the U.S., but, you know, it's you know, even the NASA administrator is going, we're talking about months, not years, between this race. So it's pretty exciting time, and I almost get to the point where I almost don't want to turn the computer on. Oh God, what happened? I was asleep. Okay.
Can you
All
talk a
right.
little bit, can you talk a little bit about, not only did this explosion happen this week, but the FAA grounded
Yeah,
SpaceX again. What's up with that?
yeah, God, I forgot that was the other thing I forgot that I put in. I thought this is wrong, bunch of slides. Yeah, Elon Musk got off the Starship, this big mega rocket, 33 engines at the end of it, and it flew and it went up and put Starship in a suborbital flight regime. There was the thing about that whole, I'll use the line that this one guy told me: "You love them, you hate them." But I tell you, from a rocket standpoint, the guy is doing iterations of things, and their success failure, that's what he wants. He doesn't feel comfortable, Elon Musk, if he's not failing somewhere, and because he learns by failure, and he fixes it. And they have done that on this Starship 12 flight. They had problems, and that's why the FAA grounded it, because the booster section came back with one engine off and didn't do a controlled landing in the Trump's Gulf of America, and it hit really hard. So the FAA is always looking at the unintended public consequences. You don't want to have a booster coming down and on land with people on it. So they decided to say it was a mishap, and the FAA has asked SpaceX, as they have in the past, to put together a mishap report. And so my guess it will be pretty quick, but they'll be flying again. But the Starship 12 flight overall was it was another iteration of issues, problems, success. And they've proven a couple of new things on that flight that give them the dynamics to go to Starship Flight 13. The bad news, this is getting all hung out and dried. Blue Origin blows up, on the pad. SpaceX grounded by the FAA. This is a slow process, and if you're in a space race, the last time I thought about slow, the tortoise, the hare thing, pretty much real with China and the United States. So it's really a dynamic time, and it's so much fun. Again, I'll turn on the computer, but I pray to God I didn't miss the story. It's like, anyway, I think, John, that's about all I know. You got something to add?
No, I just, I knew you didn't mention it, and I figured you probably wanted to.
I did. I don't know when I got busy with, following failures and stuff. I probably aced it out of my mind.
You weren't making a mistake.
No, I didn't want to make it. So, it really is. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and again, I feel like I'm 13 again. This is like a cycle of the Soviet Union, U.S. How is this going to play out? The dynamics of humans going to new places on the moon. Unbelievable times, and boy, no lack of sleep.
I think that's really the point of it, is that, and I'm sure Carolyn feels this way too. It's a lot. It seems a lot more than it was even 10 years ago to follow. There's just so much more space happening in the news, that, like this week, there's an announcement that 1 million Starlink satellites are going up, or this or that or the other thing. It's just, there's so much to follow.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to do next time, maybe, I'm really watching this Starlink thing pretty close. There's a lot of new papers on reentry of satellites, you know. Basically Starlink is a disposable constellation that's repeatedly coming in Earth atmosphere, and there is a pretty interesting wavefront of new atmospheric scientists very worried about satellite reentry, and it sounds a little dire, but I'm following it pretty close, and I'll talk about that sometime in the future because it's complicated, but it's something to watch. We see Starlink out of our windows. Every night they come by.
About 12 or 1.
I'm counting it. My God, it's just you, and you know, they just launched another batch of these Amazon satellites, and you know, and you add in, it's not just the U.S., it's Russia, it's China. Everybody now wants to have their own satellite constellation, and we're talking thousands and thousands of satellites. And one issue is that I've been told by somebody that knows, you know, they used to have really large, they had large launch windows where they could just launch. Now they got to watch they don't run into satellites, and it's like seconds. They're carving out time. It's getting more difficult to launch things into Earth orbit because of the satellite constellation. So it's pretty dynamic.
One thing that's interesting to me to watch this, you know, the SpaceX and all these other constellations that want to launch, a lot of astronomical groups, the AAS, the AAAS, and every, you know, they've come out with these, scientists have come out with these letters saying, you know what, you're ruining the night sky. It's making it more difficult to do our work, the astronomer work, and they're being completely ignored. There is not one group that has said, SpaceX, you know, they kind of gave some lip service to, well, you know, we'll make them darker and we'll turn them so that they don't, you know, do the glinting or the shining. But I'm sorry, in my astrophotography, it's, you know, that time after, you know, until about 10 o'clock at night right now, it's just a junkyard of streaks. So it is what it is.
Yeah, but you know, I'm not devaluing your capability to look at the sky, but when you have huge new observatories like Vera Rubin, some of the other spacecraft that are ground-based astronomer facilities coming on, they're complaining, but yeah, who is regulating it? Who's saying anything? And that'll be coming up in my new story in Space News. All right.
Okay,
We
that's
need a picture.
what?
Can we do a picture now, or do you want to do something?
Check with John to see if he has any astrophotography to show.
I'm sorry, I didn't have time to prepare that. So next month I will share some new pics.
But John, you were at Roswell. You got
went
to
to
say a
Roswell.
few words. You said you were chasing aliens there. So what was that like?
If you've never been to that, yeah, I heard that barely. The question was for everybody on Zoom. I went to Roswell, New Mexico last weekend for the weekend just to get out. We got out of town, and we never really stopped through. We've been through, but never stopped. Anyway, if you've never been to the museum, the UFO museum down there, it's a lot. An hour is not enough, and you gotta, if you want to read everything, we were there for at least 2 hours, and I know that there was a lot of stuff that we didn't see. And what was interesting was that the head researcher, let me see if I can find his name. Anyway, he was there, and we got to chatting. Of course, I'm kind of a chatty guy, and he remembered me from covering some story. I must have talked to him, but I didn't remember his name. His name's Donald Schmidt, I think is what his name is. Anyway, but he had some interesting things to talk about. And I think the real interesting thing that he was getting into was that they just don't have enough time and effort, or they don't have enough people and time to go through all the archives and digitize them, probably, put AI toward it or anything like this. And it was a interesting, not a complaint so much, but a realization that a lot of this stuff is there, and we're being bombarded with new stuff on the UAP stuff that the Pentagon has released, I suppose to help us not pay attention to the Epstein files. And it's got to be a lot more interesting than Epstein files. But anyway, that's what we did. We thought about driving up to where the crash site was. Apparently, that area it's on federal land, but there's some ranchers up there that are kind of touchy about people coming by. So we didn't want to do it. Plus, there was a fire nearby, and you couldn't go up the road anyway. But I don't know. That's my report. That's my report from Roswell.
Yeah, if you get a chance, it's really an interesting thing. And one thing about Roswell, down the street is a museum that has Robert Goddard's
Oh yeah,
entire laboratory. And
that
I'll
was
tell
cool.
you, this guy was the first, he built the first liquid fuel rocket. And it's a great museum. It's an art museum, but it has this incredible, unbelievable. It's like walking back in time. And it's everything there is all the tools he used. Great. Did you get to that, John?
Yeah, we went there. I
Yeah.
forgot all about that. It was
Very good.
like stepping back in time. It was like stepping into his lab, and I don't know, it's so, I don't know, visceral. I mean, it's cool that, he did so much for rocketry with that stuff. I don't know. I find that, I'm a history buff anyway, but that was cool.
And his wife, without her, Robert Goddard would have not been as recognized. She documented everything, got him to actually patent things that he had done, and she was really and that's why. And she was wrapped up in the Goddard Space Flight Center at NASA. It's pretty interesting, her role. I just learned a little bit more about what she did, and an incredible team pioneering space. Okay.